Hello and welcome everyone to today's Zoom talk. We have here with us at Vanguard University, Christina Kim, and she is going to be talking about how Christians can engage culture through film and why we should. So my name is Eunice Kang. I teach the film and politics class here at Vanguard, and I have the pleasure to introduce Christina today as she does her talk. So real quick, her bio, Christina July Kim was born in Monterey Park, California, and then moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico when she was 6 years old. She escaped racial prejudices through acting and found freedom of expression through theater. In high school, she continued to study acting, and with the counsel of her high school drama teacher, D. Keyson, she decided to apply for the Bachelor of Fine Arts acting program at the University of Southern California. And out of 500 plus applicants, Christina was accepted into the prestigious BFA program. And Christina was Taft-Hartlied into SAG for her role as Sue in the film Doc West, released in 2009. And it also starred Paul Sorvino and Terence Hill, and it was produced by DAP Italy. In addition to acting, Christina has worked also in the tech sector for the past 15 years, working very closely with C-level executives and tech professionals. And it's actually through her day job that Christina is able to pay for the film projects that she takes on through her production company, Selah Pictures, and which she started to tell the stories that she wanted to tell as an underrepresented minority woman in the entertainment industry. And then in 2016, she also started the Silicon Valley International Film Festival, and that's the only networking event that connects people who work in tech with filmmakers with the objective of filmmakers getting their next film funded. And Selah is actually a Hebrew word referring to the voluntary and intentional pause for reflection, and it's Christina's hope that her films will inspire her audience to do just that. So welcome, Christina Kim, to Vanguard, and thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. So before we begin, I know that we opened up with everybody sharing their favorite movie. So I wanted to share with you my favorite movie. It's so crazy to just pick one movie out of all the movies that have been made, but my absolute favorite movie is Silence. I don't know if you all have ever seen Silence. It's a Martin Scorsese movie, and it has Andrew Garfield, and he plays a very, very different role. He plays a Jesuit priest in that film, and it's about pretty much why the gospel never spread in the country of Japan. And if you all, I don't know if you guys know, but in Japan, less than 1% of the population was Christian. And, this movie kind of dives into why that may be the case. And this movie kind of takes place during the times of the samurais. And so it's just, I love movies like that. And as some of you know, Martin Scorsese, he has been very vocal about his own faith. He is a very devout Catholic, I believe, and he wanted to make movies that explore his faith and some of the questions that come up. And I love, so it's like those are the type of movies that really draw me. Like, of course, I love The Notebook, and I love Beautiful Mind, and I love Requiem for a Dream. Like, I love movies like that. But movies like Silence are the ones that just really, they're the reason why I wanted to be an actor. They're the reason why I wanted to be in this industry, and they're the reason why I wanted to tell stories. Because I really do believe that it's through stories that people's minds open. They kind of want a period of time to kind of escape from their current reality and to be opened up to realities that are very, very different than their own. And because they're so different than their own, it's like the first time that people can actually just really come to understand other people, other people's experiences. And that's when we can have deeper, more meaningful conversations. And so that's why I am such a fan of movies, why I was interested in this movie industry. Something that not too many people may know was I actually wasn't always going to be a theater major. Um, I think something that's really important when you're exploring your life calling and what you want to do with your life. I'm a Christian. I believe that God loves me. Jesus is evidenced of that. And I believe that we're all here for this finite period of time here on earth for a purpose. And throughout high school, I was trying to figure out what that was. And I I think it's so important to always keep God in the conversation of your thoughts. And what I mean by that is a lot of people think that praying is this formal thing where you have to be in a pew, on your knees, hands folded, eyes closed. Like that is what prayer is. And that's not. I think prayer is just being very open about how you're feeling, the thoughts that you're thinking. And God, he can take all of your thoughts. He knows them anyway. So it's like why do you even, try to not let him in? Maybe you don't even want to let yourself in on some of the thoughts that you have. But the thing is, it's the minute that you open up with how you're feeling and you check in with yourself and you really sit and not let yourself be distracted by so many things, but just really sit and process how you're feeling and check in with yourself. And you pray, you know, you pray to God, a God that is listening. It's like, I feel like that's when, God will bring different people into your life that'll audibly speak to you. If you read the Bible, like God speaks to us through his word, like that's when, if you open up the Bible, there will be a way that God worked through the people a long time ago that is very relevant to what's going on in your life right now. He'll speak to you in that way. Maybe you'll listen to a message. Maybe you'll see an actual like sign somewhere when you're walking. But the thing is, in order for you to catch what God is telling you have to be praying and in dialogue with him, right? So anyway, I bring that up as a backdrop because ever since high school, I've always prayed. I've always had this conversation with God about my future and what I wanted to do. And I specifically told God, hey, acting, like I was fortunate enough to be cast as the lead in all of my school plays. I was actually a cheerleader for the first 2 years of high school. And a lot of the reason why I did cheerleading was because I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to, have that positive attention on me. And I think that that stemmed from my upbringing, growing up in New Mexico, where there were no Asian people, and me getting made fun of for something that I had no control over. Um, me wanting to, and then like my parents are Korean immigrants. They immigrated here from South Korea, and they would frequently speak to me in Korean. And as a child, people would be like, what are they saying to you? And then it would make me very self-conscious, very insecure. And then people would talk. And so all of those things kind of shaped my upbringing. And so what I tried to do was I always tried to wear the coolest clothes. I always tried to, I like bleached and highlighted my hair so that it would be lighter. I, was friendly to everybody. I became a cheerleader. I did all of these things so that I would be accepted and so that people would think that I was cool. And again, a lot of it stemmed from me growing up and just not feeling accepted and not feeling like I belonged. So anyway, that was kind of the backdrop. I got accepted. I was a cheerleader, and I'm sorry, my child just woke up behind me, and so I'm a little bit distracted. But anyway, going back, it's like, so I was a cheerleader and I got cast for all of these productions. And then my drama teacher, Diane Keyson, she took me aside and she said, hey, you have a choice to make. I want to keep casting you. I want to cast you for all of these leads in these plays, but you have to be at rehearsal every single day after school. And I couldn't be at rehearsal because I was a cheerleader, and cheerleading is a year-round sport. You cheer and you have competitions like all year round. So I couldn't go to any of the rehearsals. And so after my sophomore year in high school, I made the decision to completely quit cheerleading and to just kind of go all in with acting. And that was a decision that I made. And I think often in life, we will be given these decisions where we have to choose what we're going to do, right? And I would have been on varsity cheer, it's like I would have kept going on that projection, right? But I also knew that when I was acting, I felt like this freedom of being able to, take on roles that were very different from my own. People didn't just see me as like an Asian, what they saw, right? It's like I could hide into these other worlds. So that's what drew me to acting and drew me to theater back then. And then I remember just praying about where I was supposed to go to college. And I really felt that God was, just saying, hey, you should pursue this. But in the back of my mind, like, because I knew that I had auditioned for this, if I didn't get in, I really liked teeth. I really liked dentistry. I had braces, all throughout high school. And I was like, I would be okay being an orthodontist. Like, I think it's so cool that, you can take these like jacked up looking teeth and you can make them look like really awesome, and it makes such a difference. So I thought that that thing was just really cool. And USC also had a very good school of dentistry. So I prayed and I was like, okay, God, if I don't get into this BFA program, because when you're a BFA theater major, you stay with the same 20 people for all 4 years. You do your own shows. They have a showcase for you at the end, and you can't have any other major. So you really only have to do that. You really only have time to do that. So I specifically said, if I get into this program, then it'll be my sign that this is what I'm supposed to do. But if I don't get into this program, I'll just do theater like as a minor, because I enjoy doing it. And I'll go all in on like the school of dentistry and I'll like go that route. And there are so many times where you see people, like you see, a lot of actors who have had these other alternative, you had these other, go into a bathroom, please. Any bathroom. Okay. I'll be right back. Let me turn on the light really fast. This is the joys of just, I think one of the questions asked was, how do you balance everything? Well, you just kind of roll with it, really. Um, so anyway, I was talking about the School of Dentistry. I was talking about this program where you go in, and it's one of those things where you're in so I was in this program and then I got accepted. And then so I knew that this is where I was supposed to go. And it wasn't always easy because I don't know if any of you know, but USC is a school where a lot of the students are incredibly wealthy. They have parents that just pay off their full tuitions. And me, I didn't have that. I was there on a ton of financial aid, and I was working 3 part-time jobs to put myself through college. And it was one of those things where, looking back in retrospect, I wish I would have just taken out more loans so that I could focus more on my craft. I can focus more on going out for auditions. I literally was working all the time. And that it's like, it's one of those things too. I wish I would have gone over to the film school and like networked with a lot of the film students. But I didn't. So it's one of those things. You guys are just kind of getting started in your careers right now, and you're just kind of like figuring out the world. And it's like, take advantage of those opportunities. It's like, don't feel like you have to work like 3, 4 part-time jobs. Don't get me wrong. I feel like doing that has strengthened my character. It's given me an insane work ethic. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like I was relying so much on myself, and I stressed so much, I stressed myself so much out, as opposed to turning to God and just really like letting God open doors. I've learned that as I've gotten older and as my faith and my relationship with God has strengthened, and I've learned to do that a lot more. But when I was younger, I literally had no direction. My parents couldn't help me financially, so I really did feel like I was kind of on my own. So it's one of those things where I wish I would have taken that to God a lot more, instead of having this attitude of, oh no, I can do it by myself and I'm going to do it by myself. Yes. Austin, he's going to be right back. So my youngest, he just woke up from his nap. Yes, Connor, I'm on a call right now, so let me finish the call, okay? Okay, so anyway, I share all of that stuff with you because I want you all to kind of get an understanding of my background and why I got into acting to begin with. I had a very unconventional route too. A semester before I was supposed to graduate from college, I had this amazing acting opportunity in Seoul, Korea. And it was to be a guest star on a TV show in Korea through MBC, which is like a really big Korean broadcasting network. And so I took a semester off. I left and then I lived in Korea to chase this opportunity. And this opportunity actually didn't end up working out. It didn't pan out. And they actually ended up, canceling the episode where I was supposed to be on. And so I was kind of like, oh, shoot, I like went all in. I dropped out of college. I thought that this is what I was supposed to be doing. And it's one of those things where hindsight is 2020, because during that time, I worked for a radio broadcasting, studio. I was a radio DJ for a morning show for Arirang Radio, during that time. And I also worked at a cafe, and there was this cafe owner who was really strong in her faith growing up, but then she went through a lot of really like life just hit her really hard, and she ended up turning away from her faith. She just had a lot of anger and questions towards God. And it was so interesting because I came into her life and she needed help at her cafe. And I had all of these like blog entries that I wanted translated into Korean. So I told her, hey, if you help me with these translations, I'll work at your cafe for free. And so every single day, like every night for like a few hours, I would go, and there was like nobody that went into her cafe. And so we would literally sit there and we would go through my very personal blog entries during college, and she would help me translate them. And it's so funny how God used these personal blog entries to bring her back to him. And looking back at my time in Korea, it's one of those things where I went out to Korea thinking that I was going to get cast in this TV show, right? This episode of this TV show that was really popular in Korea, and it didn't end up happening. And instead, I really do feel like, you know, because this is a Christian university, I feel very comfortable talking freely and openly about this. But something that God has been impressing on my heart these days is, Jesus said, the good shepherd will leave the 99 sheep and he will go after that one. And I really do feel that, you know, God used me to go after that one sheep at the cafe owner. And he brought me all the way from California to Korea. And what was really crazy was as soon as I came back from that trip, disappointed that it didn't work out the way that I wanted it to work out, I finished off my last semester at USC with a new class. I ended up just, it was just so crazy. I ended up just getting my agent through my showcase. And my agent submitted me for this acting project, which ended up getting me into the Screen Actors Guild. And so it's one of those things where it's like, we know a God that literally he's all powerful, like in the blink of an eye, like your reality can change, right? But the thing is, if you don't have your heart set, you will go down, so like we are so easily led astray. Like you will lose focus of your mission, you will lose focus of your passion, you will lose yourself in this industry, because this is a very dark industry. And there were very many times when, I mean, it's like I feel like just looking at the news, the stuff that's come out in the news on Hollywood recently, it's like people coming forward and speaking about the casting couch discussions about the whole Harvey Weinstein stuff, and there's about the child sexual predators that are out there. Like this is all very real. And I feel like the industry is being disrupted right now just because of streaming, because for the first time, a lot of these studios and, what sells, like, it's like, you can't just copy and paste and do that anymore. We're living in a different time with technology, with technological advancements, and with AI and all of that. So anyway, okay, so bringing this back, something that God has impressed on me is a lot of the people in this industry, and this is just based upon my experience of talking with a lot of the people that I've met in the industry, people specifically like who want to be actors, it's because they're looking for this affirmation. I myself, and I'm speaking from personal experience, I didn't have that affirmation when I was growing up. And so I looked for it. I looked for the applause of other people, through me being an actor. And so once I really found peace with my identity and who I was in God, I feel like I feel like I'm not so desperate to look for that love and affirmation from the industry, from anybody anymore. Brandon, Connor went to the bathroom. Can you go take care of him, please? My husband just came home. I'm just like, why did he leave? But anyway, that's a side note. He's coming. So anyway, I think it's so important for us to really, if you want to make a difference in this industry as a Christian, as anybody, not even a Christian, as a person, I think you need to first and foremost just do a heart check with yourself. And I think that that's something that I've been learning. I think that all of those things that you're going through right now, everybody has such unique and different experiences. And I think that the reason why we go through certain things is so that we can be an encouragement and we can comfort those other people that are going through it. And I think that all of those things make for really engaging and unique stories. And I feel like in an industry that is out of really good ideas and they're constantly just copying ideas from the past, I feel like it's when we really dig deep within ourselves and the unique situations that we're put in, the unique upbringings that we have, when we bring those things in the context of a story, I feel like that's when, people will open up and be changed. And I feel like really so much of life is just about perspective and the perspective that you have. Austin, can you turn on the volume on that, please? And the thing is, it's like, it's one of those things where when I started my journey, I know that you guys can read it from my bio, like the different paths that I went down. But it's like, I feel like when we remember that we know a God that knows everything, that is all powerful, I feel like we are more inclined to take risks. I feel like that should be the hallmark of somebody who knows Jesus versus somebody who doesn't. Because if you know Jesus, why aren't you going to take that risk? Why aren't you going to go forward? Right? And if you go forward, I really do feel like God can do so much more with a car that is in drive than with a car that is in park. And if you look back on Jesus's parables, like he always talks about this. He talks about the talents that he gives to his servants. One he gives one, when he gives three, when he gives five. And it's so like, I think humanity, it's just in our nature because we have a sinful nature, right? It's just in our nature to just bury it and not do anything with it, right? And we live in that time where we can be so distracted, just endless scrolling, right? It's like, you'll be sitting in bed and then like hours will have gone by because you are just scrolling, right? And so it's one of those things where it's really, really countercultural. And I feel like this is where like the Holy Spirit can help us really move into action. And I think the reason why there's a spiritual force that fights us from moving forward is because when we do move forward, that's when we see God and that's when God shows up. And the thing is, you don't have to have all your ducks in a row. You don't have to know exactly where it is you're going. Just act, just move, and then see what happens, right? And so I think that engaging culture, specifically the film industry as a Christian, I think that it's so important because the world is just hurting. The world is self-medicating. I mean, you look at all of the things that are happening, the ways that they're trying to distract themselves, the ways that they're trying to numb themselves. And it's because they're hurting, because they feel unloved, because they feel very alone. And the thing is, I think that when we as Christians engage this culture through film, through stories, through our experiences, I feel like that's what opens up their hearts. And I feel like that's what inspires them. And I think that, again, when you just take action and you move, incredible things happen. Like, and you know what? God is so patient with us. Like when I was going on my different auditions, after I got Taft-Hartlied into SAG, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm set. Like, things are going to happen. But you know what? It's like this industry is so incredibly fickle because you look at some A-list actors who were so busy doing so many movies like 5 years ago, and they're not doing anything now. Like, where are they? You know? So it's like, it's one of those things where you can't just rely on that. And I think the reason why so many actors who only do acting just stop doing it is because they don't have any other skill sets. And I think that when you are a Christian, you just have a different can-do mentality, and you learn all these other things, and you automatically are able to plug in to so many different parts of this industry and network with so many different people. And I feel like that's where you can kind of have your in. And there's so many different ways that you can have your in this industry now. And so, like, again, I got burnt out, from getting sent out on these auditions from Hollywood, from my agent, for these like massage parlor, like technicians, or like this nail technicians where I had to speak in like an Asian accent. Like, I had so many of those auditions one day, and it was just really, really disheartening that, like, I couldn't be considered for a role that, somebody who was not Asian, would be going for, right? I think that one year I had none of those auditions. It was really, really disappointing. And so I was just really discouraged, and I just decided to take a break. And my mom was, she was going through a divorce with my dad, and she was up in San Anselmo, in Marin, the Bay Area. And I just like went and lived with her for a year just to help her with her papers. And I took a break from acting. And it was up there that I kind of, discovered the world of being an administrative assistant. And that led to me being an executive assistant. And it's actually a pretty lucrative career. Like, executive assistants get like six figures, and like that's like starting, depending. And it's like, it's stuff that you're just naturally, like, I'm just a naturally organized person, it's like administrative stuff, planning things, like those are things that I'm just naturally good at. And it's one of those things where once I figured out a path where I could make money that wasn't draining to me, it's not draining to me because I'm naturally good at it, right? And it's one of those things where now that I have this money, and a short film costs like what? You can make a short film with a couple $1,000s. You can make, and then a feature film, if you really want to be scrappy, you can make it for like $5,000, $10,000. And then it's just like, it's one of those things where you have this job that isn't, like sucking your soul, and you have energy at the end of the day, and you have this money that you can put towards it. All of a sudden you have power, and you're able to start telling the stories that you want to tell. You can start telling, the experiences. You can just write it up. It's like you guys, even with each other, different films that I like. The way that I made my first short film was I was an actor on so many different short films, and I kept in touch with all of the DPs because I'm the type of person where I interacted with everybody on set. Like, I knew all of the crew, I knew the DPs, and I didn't have this like, I didn't like premeditate it. Like, oh, I'm purposely going to be nice to these people so that I can call them to help me with my short film later on. No, like, I just naturally built a relationship with them because that's who I was. And then when I had this idea for a short film, I just reached out to them, and they were like, yes, I would love to help you with this project, and then it's like, that's kind of how I started establishing myself as a filmmaker, as a director, as a writer. And I, of course, acted in my own projects, telling the stories that I wanted to tell. And these stories are the reasons why I wanted to become an actor. And then as I started going through the film festival route, I noticed, like, I met these incredible filmmakers that I would love to work with because I loved their storytelling. But you get lost in these in these film festivals because they're so big and there's so many people. But then, like, something that I noticed was, oh my gosh, they all are talking to the organizer of the film festival. And I was like, what can I do to organize a film festival, and bring these filmmakers to me? And then it's like, obviously I worked in tech, and just during the day to day, I would have conversations with people that I worked with about what my true passion was. And they were like, oh my gosh, I really wanted to get involved, but I don't know how to get involved. And, I was thinking, gosh, like, I know how much money you make because when you're an executive assistant, you have visibility into everything, right? So I knew how much they made. And the thing is, I was just thinking, gosh, like $5,000, $10,000 to you, like, that's nothing, and that's all it would take to make a film. And if you wanted to act in it, you could have like a contingency, like, hey, I'll fund your project if you put me in your movie. And to a filmmaker who doesn't really have a lot of options, like they're not gonna say no. And so that's how I got the idea to start the Silicon Valley International Film Festival, because a lot of filmmakers, they want to make these films, but they don't have the money. And so, it's one of those things where I was really good at organizing events. It was one of those things where it's like, it's like, if you think about it, like all the things that you have to do in order to do it, it's so overwhelming to the point where you'll just never do it. You'll have paralysis analysis, right? You just won't do it. But if you break it down, and this is why prayer is so important, if you break it down and you ask God, like, and I honestly think that's why God doesn't show us everything all at once. They say that God gives you a lantern and not a flashlight. And I do think that that's the reason why God gives us a lantern, because if we saw everything in advance, I feel like it would just be so overwhelming that we would just not want to do anything. Right. And so I feel like you take those little steps and then it's like the path just becomes a lot clearer, and more resources get tossed your way, and other people join alongside you. So it's like, it's one of those things where I literally just booked a conference room, the biggest conference room. I was working at Salesforce at the time when I started this film festival. I booked the largest all hands, room, and I organized a volunteer event. And that's how I got a lot of people to go to the event. And then I put up a posting on Film Freeway, which is what filmmakers use to submit their films. And I just started watching films, and I was like, yes, this is a filmmaker that I want to work with. Yes, this is a film. This film speaks to me. Like, this is well done. And then I just started building the people and then introducing them to my filmmaker network. So I think the takeaway from that experience is you just need to take action. And I feel like as a Christian, again, we are in this unique position where we know the God of the universe. We know a God who loves us. We know a God who can change our reality in the blink of an eye. Yes. And so because like knowing that, it's like, why are you afraid to take that action? And again, it's one of those things where when you start taking the action, it's like it leads to like ripples, and you start seeing more actions. Right. And so, yeah, I feel like that's kind of like the main premise. I think it's just, you just need to take action. And I feel like that's what we're called to do. And if things don't pan out the way that you want, don't get so disappointed. It's like some of the things, and I've been through my share of disappointments. It's like there were so many opportunities that I could have had, like, Past Lives, that movie that just came out, right? I was, the lady who got cast, Greta Lee, I was her stand-in on this movie on the TV show Chance. And so anyway, it was so crazy because the casting director of Past Lives reached out to me, and she invited me to audition for that lead role because she saw me at the Toronto Film Festival in the film Coming Home Again, where I played Justin Chon's sister. And so it's just like, and so I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. And then I didn't end up getting it. And then you see just what a beautiful film it was. And you see just, the impact it had. And I'm just like, oh, why didn't it happen? And I don't know why it didn't happen. Like sometimes we don't know those answers. But the thing is, I can choose to just wallow in my self-pity, or I can just choose to continue to move forward, and it's like, I just have to trust that there's a reason why that didn't happen, and just be better prepared like next time, for when the opportunities happen. It's like, I think about that parable that Jesus told about the virgins and the extra oil in the lamps, it's like, you never know when it's going to happen, but when it does happen, are you going to be ready?
Thank you, Christina, so much. I feel like this talk kind of took a life of its own because you went a lot deeper and more personal with your story and your journey than I ever expected. So thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable and sharing your successes and also the challenges and some of the some of the hiccups along the way too, or the disappointing parts of your journey too. So thank you so much for that transparency. We have maybe 30 minutes or so left, And I want to open it up to questions and answers. But I do have one follow-up question. I know that the topic was, how can we engage the culture through film? And I don't have any background. I don't think anyone here has any background really in Hollywood. So I would love to hear a little bit of commentary. Like, is Hollywood a hard place for Christians to be successful in? If so, why is that the case? Or is it more welcoming than we think? I would love to hear a little bit about maybe just Hollywood in general, the culture in Hollywood, perhaps, and maybe the importance of why we should have more Christian actors or filmmakers or directors or people working in Hollywood.
Yeah, no, I mean, Hollywood is, it's very, it doesn't look favorably on Christians. It really doesn't. And it doesn't look favorably on a lot of types of people. I feel like Hollywood, if you don't believe in this certain thing, if you're not voting for a particular candidate, if you don't believe this way, or if you don't have this idea on this issue, then it's like you're automatically blacklisted. And you've seen it in a lot of, people who have differing opinions that are vocal, that speak out, and then people just don't want to work with them again. So it's like, I think that it's one of those things where that's the reason why, Angel Studios came to life, the production studio that produces The Chosen, and it's like not only The Chosen, but a lot of other movies have started to come out. Like I saw an Angel Studio production called The Shift. I don't know if any of you all have seen that movie, The Shift, but it's such a interesting and fascinating movie where the shift, it's not blatantly, Christian, but it's so interesting because it basically talks about how we're shifted into, there's like a lot of different versions of ourselves. And a lot of the times Satan will try to create disorder by shifting us like a version of ourselves and taking us out and replacing it with a different version of ourselves. Right. And it's like, that movie was just, it's like the movie was, I guess, inspired by the book of Job, right? Job struggled a lot and stuff. And so it's just, I feel like it's one of those things where, yes, we can engage with Hollywood, but just know that they are not going to be, I mean, I'm talking about Hollywood as a collective, right? But it's like, they're not going to be in line with your values and the things that are important to you. And the thing is, you can, something that I've done is it's one of those things where I just kind of look for the common ground because I don't like, unnecessary conflict, it's like, I think some conflict is necessary, but for the most part, like I like being a peacemaker. And so I try to stay away from things where I know we will disagree on things and I just won't go there. But at the same time, it's one of those things where this is why I think instead of jumping in and conforming yourself, I think it's so important to be like an Angel Studio where you go and you start creating your own stuff so that you don't have to be afraid of offending somebody, or you don't have to be afraid of saying the wrong thing, or you don't have to be afraid of, just people not liking you. It's one of those things where I feel like you're going to see it a lot more. And you see it now with like all these like influencers that are out there. It's like gaining traction. It's just a different world than it was. This industry is different than it was 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. And I feel like there is so much opportunity for us Christians to just kind of like enter in. It's like the barrier of entry used to be just so high and impossible. And I feel like now, because you start seeing Hollywood crumbling, especially in light with the whole like strikes, a lot of those SAG strikes and the writer strikes that happened recently, it was all around just streaming royalties and, all of that. And now with like AI, right? And so again, it's one of those things where if you tell stories that are impactful, I feel like Hollywood will take notice. Just like with, that movie Sound of Freedom that came out, it hit like over $1 billion, right? It's like Hollywood took notice. And so, and it was a movie about sex trafficking, right? About trafficking. And so I just really want to just know, and this is just my opinion, but I think trying to conform your values, trying to change your values and who you are. And if you have discernment and you know that something is wrong, you compromising on that. I feel like that when you go into Hollywood, you're going to absolutely feel the pressure to do that. And I think as long as you're aware of that, I think that that's good, because then it won't catch you so off guard. And then, when people are caught off guard, they end up doing things and saying things that they wish that they didn't. I feel like when you are aware, then you can better retaliate and you have responses that you can give, or how to behave and how to act. But yeah, it's like, I just feel like there is that pressure, and they aren't going to accept they aren't going to accept our values a lot of the times. They don't. And they'll make you feel like a horrible person just for having certain values.
Thank you so much for that answer. I just want to open up now this time for anyone who has any questions. If you have any question, okay, I see it in the chat box. You just say, I have a question. And I see here, I want to try to get through as many questions as we can. And I feel like if we go through one question at a time, then we only have like 20 minutes left. So I'm going to batch the questions in threes. So I'm going to first call on
And I'll be super fast too.
Yeah, you can
And
have super
when I was
fast.
telling my long story, I read through all of the questions that you guys had in your Google Doc. So I try to like hit up a lot of those questions in my story.
Okay, perfect. So I want to ask Jules to ask her question first, and then Riley, and then Donald.
Okay.
Go ahead and
Oh,
unmute.
okay, Christina, I'm basically wanting to know, do you have a role model or mentors in your life at this time? And
Okay.
what inspires you?
Oh my, so no,
Oh,
I don't. I mean, Eunice is my mentor.
What? Christina, you're so funny. Okay, Riley, can you ask your question, and then Donald? Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned in like your story how the advancement of technology, like AI, like streaming services, has really changed the film industry. And I'm wondering, have you had to kind of change your mindset, and how so, to interact with these new forms of technology?
Perfect. And Donald?
I was looking at your bio and said that you were like ashamed to be like Korean kind of growing up, and I was wondering how much that has changed nowadays and how you may see it as have been like somewhat of a competitive advantage like in the film industry.
Okay, so jumping in, Jules's question, role model. Eunice is seriously my role model. I'm not even joking. Like, I've got to share this story, but she was like my first friend when I went out to USC. And Eunice, when I met her, it's so I knew she would be a professor, and I knew that God has called her to this. And there are very, very few PhDs that are Christian, and there's a reason for that, right? So the fact that she went through this secular school system, right, and she still loves God is a miracle. It really is a miracle. And that is just a testament that she's here because God wants her here. So she is my mentor. We frequently Marco Polo with each other just because like I have such crazy schedules and stuff, and she has crazy schedules, and I'm on the East Coast. I'm going to be on the West Coast soon, but I'm on the East Coast. So with the time difference, but we stay in touch with each other through Marco Polo. So it's like, we'll leave videos, we'll share what's going on. And then when we have time, we'll listen to it and we'll go back and forth. So Eunice is my role model and she is my mentor. In terms of the film industry, I love M. Night Shyamalan. And it's so crazy because I actually met him in January of this year because I was invited to his 10-year screening of The Village, his 10-year anniversary screening of The Village. So I met him and his wife, Bhavna. And it's so crazy. The reason why I got invited to that was because of a filmmaker I met at my film festival. It's crazy. He was coming to the event. He had a ticket and we went together and it was amazing. But I love his storytelling. He actually has a movie coming out called The Trap, and I love his style of just that, like keeps you on the edge. Josh Hartnett, is in that movie. And it's just, I just love that he's so family focused because him and his wife, Bhavna, even though they're not Christian, I love his movie, The Signs, that has a lot of Christian themes in it. And so it's one of those things. I think he's definitely, I personally think he's a lost sheep that God is like going to come after, that God is going after. That's just a sense that I had. And so it's one of those things where I love his love for family. I love that he prioritizes his family, but at the same time, he makes these really engaging and interesting films. So the next question, Riley, about AI that you were talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think that the way that I've engaged AI just as a filmmaker is just like, and this is the reason why there were strikes and stuff, is like, with AI, like if you need a scene where you have a whole bunch of background, right? Like TV shows and movies, what they do is they actually get real people and they do that. But with AI, you can literally just multiply those people and just have fake people, right? So it's just a lot more productive. So, I mean, in that sense, there are just a lot of like visual effects, from a post-production standpoint that I've engaged on, using AI and using technology. But that is really the extent of it, so far. I think just even like video auditions, I think it's been really great just using technology. There's a lot of like video auditions that my agent will send me out on. And during the video auditions, I'll have like a green screen, I'll change the background. I'll alter like a voice that reads with me so I don't have to have like a physical reader reading with me. Riley, do you want to go maybe in depth with that question?
Yeah, honestly, I was curious if this was just like a mindset switch and you went to college, you kind of trained for an industry that is very different now than the one that you have ended up in. And so I
Yeah.
was curious in a mindset, if there was this giant mindset switch, I guess.
Not really, because I feel like I went to school as an actor, right? So I was a theater BFA major for acting. And I feel like acting has just like, even with all of the AI and stuff like that, it's just like, if anything, it's like you're just acting with AI. You're acting with something that isn't there. So you're pretending. But it's like, I feel like, you have to do that anyway, because really acting is just creating something in your imagination. You're imagining. I mean, obviously it's helpful when an actual physical person is there, and you can like play off of that person. But I think that in our training, we were trained to just really have active imaginations and, so interacting with like AI and stuff like that is, not too far-fetched. But yeah, I mean, I think from a filmmaker standpoint, I feel like I can't really speak from like a filmmaker standpoint on that, because I think that that would be definitely something that would be interesting to learn about, because again, just the cameras that people are using, like the editing tools that people are using now are just so different. And the other question was around Donald about being ashamed growing up as Korean. It's really interesting. I feel like I really, what really did it for me? I think it was just being around other Asian American people that really helped. Like, I think leaving Albuquerque, New Mexico, coming to Los Angeles for college, and meeting Eunice. She was in my orientation class at USC. And, she recognized me. I mean, I stood out. I had like highlighted blonde, curly hair, like really big, and, it's like, it was one of those things where she just came up to me and we were just talking and she was just very straightforward. She was like, hey, you were my orientation. And she was just like, are you Korean? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, are you Christian? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, do you have a church? I was like, no. And she was like, do you want to come to my church? And I was like, sure. And so I went to church, and it was really great because I found like a really great community at the church, but it was also a Korean American church. And so that was the first time that I was actually around Asian Americans. And I was like, wow, this is actually kind of nice, because my experience with Asians in Albuquerque, New Mexico, were people who couldn't speak English, because they immigrated, from another country. And so it was just so wild just being around other people that were like me, and then when I went to Korea and lived there for a year and a half, it's like I was only around Asian people. So I feel like there was definitely a progression. And with each progression, I became a lot more open, and a lot of those issues that I had, the hatred really that I had with myself, it started to melt away. And I think that's really what it was for me, for myself personally. And yeah, I just think it's really crazy that now, with Parasite, winning an Oscar, and all of these, like things happening with K-pop, into our like American like culture. I definitely think that it's not a coincidence. And I think I like to see it as like, like this is just paving the road for, when something happens.
Thank you so much. I have 8 questions left, and we're supposed to end at 1:20. We can go maybe
Yeah, let's do it.
So rapid fire, like questions and answers, I'm thinking, so that everyone gets a chance to ask their question and be heard. Wait, I think okay, so Maddie, you want to ask your question first, then Zoe, Asher, and Callista.
Yeah, thank you again for taking the time to speak with us. My question for you is, throughout your career, have you experienced significant changes in political polarization and like using media for political agenda? And do you think it takes away from the art of film?
Thank you.
Yes.
Zoe?
Austin, can you turn off the sound? Connor, turn off the sound. Help him.
Sorry.
Well, help him turn off the sound. Yes, I do. And I think that.
Hold on, Christina, do you mind if I finish?
Oh, yes.
up?
Oh, are you batching the questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
Zoe?
Yeah, so thank you so much for meeting with us. I think my question is more focused on like since you're in the film industry, just like how you get all of your support. I guess it's like really hard, so yeah.
Okay, next, Asher.
So I grew up like as an aspiring actor, and like that was what I wanted to do my whole life. So I was just kind of curious, like what do you think was like the most influential moment in your life that kind of contributed to you like breaking out in the industry?
Thank you. And Callista?
Yeah, like Asher, I was really interested in the arts, and because I'm Asian also, I felt like a lot of my roles were typecasted. Do you feel like you were typecasted throughout your career as well?
That's 4.
Okay, so Maddie, so can you clarify your question a little bit about if people use like the political?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, have you seen a change from the beginning of your career to now, like the way that I guess film is being used? Because similar to like what we talked about, the Sound of Freedom, like obviously that's used to promote human trafficking and sex trafficking. So do you think there's been like a significant shift in like the motives of movies, and do you think it takes away from like the art of film?
So I think the beauty of film is there are so many different types of films, and you can do so many different types of things. I think that there are definitely, I think that film has always been used politically in some way as a message, just because it's such a powerful medium. And I think that it is very effective, right? And I think that that's why, like documentaries, also there's always a spin. There's always a perspective that, a documentary filmmaker has that they're trying to convey to the audience. And if they don't, they're lying, because they definitely have a point that they're trying to get across. But the thing is, I personally don't think and even movies that are just meant to be artistic, I feel like there's always a message. And I think that that's the reason why film can be so powerful, because I think that regardless of whether it's in the intention of the filmmaker or not, I feel like just we as human beings, when we consume like something, a film or like art in the form of a film, I feel like we always naturally bring our experiences, and we always see it through the filter of our, like our experiences, the lens of our like experiences and stuff, and our, beliefs and our, all of that. So I think that I don't think it's a bad thing. I really don't. And I think that it is something, and I think that's the reason, those are actually the films that I gravitate towards, the films that cause people to see things in a different way. And I think that because a lot of different viewpoints, especially within the political, area, can be so polarizing, I feel like doing it in subtle ways through a film, I feel like that is where the power lies. Because then it's like, you've disarmed a person without them even realizing that their like, defenses have come down. And I think that that's really how you change people's perspectives and get them to open up and get everybody to kind of like come towards the center, right? I think the next question was Asher, right? Was it Asher or Zoe? Zoe. And Zoe, repeat your question again.
Yeah, my question was, how do you get all your support? Because I can only imagine that the film industry is not easy. So yeah.
No. So you know what? I say this all the time, but I never wanted to get married and I never wanted children. I really did not want children. And I actually met my husband on Tinder. And I was actually going through, I grew up in the church and I was like waiting for God to like bring me my husband. And I was like, where is he? I was like waiting for God to like Instacart or DoorDash my husband to me, and it wasn't happening. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to like go out and get him, And so that's why I was on Tinder. And it was so interesting because I feel like I love my children. Like it's really actually kind of surprising. I have 2 boys, and they fight over who sleeps next to me at night, and we like co-sleep with them, and it's one of those things where this love and affection and support that I get from my family is something that I've never had my entire life. I just haven't. And it's like now I think because I have that, I really feel like I'm more equipped to take on the rejection that comes from the industry. I'm equipped to, because when you don't have that, you're paralyzed and you don't want to do anything and you don't do anything. You need to have that support. And so I don't know how you find it, but with me, I found it without looking for it in the form of my family, my husband, my children, and also like my friend Eunice, and it's one of those things where, you have to give what you receive, it's like a friendship is a two-way street, right? So you just have to pick those people who bring out the best in you, and you just have to invest. And if they're not investing in you, then you need to find other people who invest in you. So when you're forming your support, like if you are giving so much of yourself to somebody and they're not giving it back, like you need to find somebody else that is willing to put that effort into you as well.
I think Asher's question.
Yes. That it was the acting, right? Asher, you were talking about how you wanted to be an actor, or you were doing the acting, and then what specifically about the acting?
Well, I was just curious, like what like specifically like do you feel like marked your like breakthrough into like the industry? Like what kind of influenced that for you?
I think that my breakthrough in the industry came after I gave birth to my second kid, or my first kid. And do you remember there was like that Crazy Rich Asians open casting call on YouTube, like record yourself on YouTube and put it up on YouTube and stuff? It's so crazy because the casting director's assistant saw my YouTube audition and put me in front of Wayne Wang for Coming Home Again, which is the film that went to TIFF. So it's one of those things where I feel like as an actor, it's like just keep putting yourself out there, put your work out there, because you never know who's going to see it.
Awesome. And Callista's question do you feel like you were typecast?
Yes, all the time. And that's the reason why I was depressed. And that's the reason why I took a break from acting. And while I took a break from acting, that's the reason why I started just living life and getting in touch with myself and my experiences, and then writing films and making films about my experiences where I cast myself as the lead.
Perfect. Trinity, do you want to ask your question? And we only have like 5 minutes left. So after Trinity asks her question, Christina, maybe like 1 minute answers,
Yep.
because we have 4 questions left. So Trinity, go ahead.
Yeah, so my question was just what has been your favorite film to be a part of and why?
Wait, are there more questions or is it just Trinity's?
Oh, so I was gonna do Trinity, and you can go ahead and answer, and then the next 3, like after you answer.
Okay, perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
So my favorite movie that I was a part of was Stay Out, Stay Alive. It's on Amazon Prime. And the reason why it was my favorite project to be a part of was because I literally saw the casting for that on casting networks a long time ago. This was years ago. And I did like screen grabs with the director because the director lived in the Bay Area. It was actually when I took a break and I lived with my mom while she was going to seminary. I got connected with that director then, and we filmed screen tests and stuff like that. And then literally like silence, nothing happened. And then like, I want to say like 6 years later, I saw that same casting notice on casting networks again. And so I reached out to the director because I knew the director, and I was just like, hey, like, are you still casting for this? But at this point, it had been 6 years, you know? And so he was like, oh my gosh, yes. Like, you know, we have like a producer, executive producer now, and they saw like the screen test, and do you want to audition for it? So I auditioned for it again, and then they ended up casting me. But the reason why I loved that project so much, he actually works for ILM, which is like the visual effects studio that, you know, did like the Iron Mans, like, you know, the Lord of the Rings, like all of those like avatars and all that. He did all the visual effects for that movie. But I loved that movie so much because it was such a long time coming. And it was one of those things where I literally was aggressive. I could have seen it and I could have been like, oh my gosh, like they put it up, you know, if they really wanted me, like they would have reached out to me. Like, no, like you reach out to them, you know, and it's because I reached out to them that he was like, oh yeah, you know, and then invited me to audition, and then I ended up getting it. But it's like, I just had so much fun with that film. Like, it was great.
Awesome. Thank you. And Peyton?
Hi, thank you again for your time. I was just wondering, as a Christian actress, have there been any roles that you were hesitant to accept or even that you turned down? I know you touched on this a little bit, but any significant roles that you had to turn down?
You know, I haven't been given the opportunity to audition for like significant roles. You know, thankfully, I mean, I haven't really had to I wasn't really put in that situation. And, you know, I take everything on a case-by-case basis. I really do. And even things that I think would be compromising to me, it's one of those things where I would really have to pray about it, and I would have to see what God says, you know? I mean, obviously, yeah, it's like, I think it just really depends on what it is. So it's like, I can't say like a blanket answer of like, oh yeah, I'm never, ever going to do this, you know, because I don't know. Like, it just depends on so many factors. And I think that's the thing. It goes back to the whole like flashlight and lantern thing, right? It's like God doesn't give us just like a flashlight for us to see everything, you know. It's like a lantern. It's like you take one step at a time. And it's like, I think what God wants us to do is like when something comes up, if it comes across our path and I'm not looking for it, I really need to ask, hey, God, is this you? Did you bring this into my life? And if you did, how am I supposed to engage with this? And I have full faith and confidence that God will make it clear to me.
Okay.
And
Thank you. We're have Zachary. You want to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you again for your time. I just had a quick question regarding how would you give us like us college students some pointers or like some information on how to like break out in a particular industry as far as like networking goes and like meeting new people and connections?
I would say take action and make things happen. You guys are in such a unique part of your life where you have so much time and you don't really have a lot of responsibility, you know what I mean? Compared to when you're like older and stuff where you have to do all these things. And it's one of those things where you guys are students, like take advantage of the fact that you can get like loans, you know, like seriously, and just like make movies, do your things, you know, like create tangible things that you can show, like how you can showcase yourself and that you have things to show for. And the thing is, like, work with each other, you know, like, you know, what are your different skill sets? Like, grab coffee together, talk about stories, and actually, like, you know, plan on, you know, how you can take, you know, like logical steps towards a goal, but actually just like make things together, like do things together, you know? I think that that's the most important thing that not enough people are doing. Like just do things.
Just do it. Last but not least, we have our last question from Alex.
Hello. I was gonna ask you as how do I say this? As somebody that isn't majoring in an acting like major, like how would someone break into the acting industry?
I mean, honestly, I don't think you necessarily need to be an acting major. Like I was in like one of the most prestigious like acting like programs and stuff. I think that really like so many different ways. I think that you can take some local acting classes, right? I think that that's, you know, always helpful. But I mean, also another thing too is just, again, make films and put yourself in it, like write, you know, little sketches, you know, of circumstances or situations and just practice putting yourself on camera, telling different stories and like putting it online and like, you know, building an audience. And when you do that, it's practice for you just as an actor, like in, you know, stepping into different realities. So it's like, I mean, I think people always think, oh, I have to, you know, go to this acting school, or, oh, I have to like be in this like acting program, or I have to do all these things, but those are just excuses. Like literally just do it, you know? Like you
Awesome.
literally have a phone. You could just pick it up and just like, you know, record yourself.
I love it, Christina. Thank you so much for your energy. Thank you so much for your time today. Actually, I have one last request. The students have to, they have either a choice to submit a paper or to submit a video. And for the students who are submitting a video and they had to do a presentation on the film industry in other parts, in other countries. Do you have any tips any tips or any words of encouragement on how to create a film and when they do the audio or narration? Any tips on that?
I'm trying to think. I think is it called something that's like really, really good, that's like a really good resource is like nofilmschool.com. I don't know if you guys have ever like heard of it. Maybe you have, but it's like it's for people who just didn't go to film school. But I think what you guys should absolutely do is you should invest, and because you guys are students, you guys are going to get a discount. The Adobe Premiere Pro, such a good editing software, and you can do so many different things to it. It's a subscription model. There's a student rate. You know, maybe you guys can like get together as a group, or maybe Vanguard can like do it and then you guys can use it, you know, use the login. But really, like, I think that using something like that and investing in something like that is just going to take your editing game and filmmaking creation like up another level, like for sure.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Everyone, can you join me in thanking Christina for her time today? Yay. Thank you so much for sharing. Jules said, thank you so much for sharing your love for Jesus and for your story. So thank you so much. I'm gonna stick around after. There's a couple students who want to stick around, but other than that, this Zoom talk is officially over and done. So thank you so much, guys. I hope for my film and politics students, I had a wonderful time this semester with you. I think you guys were all fabulous students. I appreciate your time and energy into this class. You guys mean so much to me. I will miss you over the summer. And for our graduates, congratulations. Thank you.
And stay connected with me on LinkedIn if you guys are on LinkedIn.
I put Christina's LinkedIn page in the chat.
Yes, stay in touch. Well, that was fun.
That was, oh my goodness.